It's not about, it's not about, it's not about the injury. It's not about, it's not about, it's not about the injury. It's about the recovery. It's about the recovery.
Hi folks, this is Paul Padda with the Paul Padda Podcast coming to you from Red Chimp Studios. Today I have a really interesting guest, both someone I know professionally and personally. I consider him a friend. Welcome to the show, Ali
Thank you, Paul.
Rizvi,
Thank you.
CEO of Litigation Services.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Well, thanks for coming on. So we're going to talk a little bit about what Litigation Services does, but you have a very interesting background. I want to talk to you a little bit about it. You immigrated to this country and you went to school in New Mexico.
Right.
You were a healthcare executive for a number of years.
Right.
And then you transitioned and went into banking.
Right.
And you were a president of a bank here. And now you are the CEO of Litigation Services. Let's unpack a little bit of that. How did you, tell me about your time in New Mexico.
So thanks once again for having me here, Paul. Yep, as you rightly said, I moved here to the US in 1981 from Pakistan.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went to school in Albuquerque, New Mexico, got my undergrad, got my MBA. And then I joined a local bank.
Just for the record, they say Pakistan and India are always countries that are rivals. See, we proved that wrong.
Absolutely.
My
right.
parents were from India and we're like best friends.
There you go. And my father was from India.
There you go.
Yeah,
He's a real Indian. Yes.
Exactly right. So
Proving that boundaries are really just artificial.
And I think it's more politics than anything else.
I agree.
So came from Pakistan in 81, got my undergrad, got my MBA in Albuquerque. Started with a local bank in Albuquerque as a management trainee. Got bought out by Bank of America in 1991.
Yeah.
And then B of A moved me out to Las Vegas in 1994 to run the branches here as a district sales manager for Southern Nevada.
1984, you said?
1991.
1991, okay.
And so from 91 to 94, I was with Bank of America here in Vegas. From being a district sales manager, then I moved on to Premier Banking. I managed the Premier Banking Group for the state of Nevada. Left B of A, joined a company called Cardinal Health. And so it was a new concept at the time. They wanted to have a shared services group set up.
Okay.
Long story short, I set up that.
What is shared services?
Shared services primarily, Paul, is consolidating all of your back office functions. So anything that is non-client facing,
I see.
you consolidate under the same roof
Okay.
to get redundancies out, take the cost out,
Got
make it more efficient.
Yeah.
So we did that for the finance group in North America.
Okay.
We consolidated all of their functions here in Las Vegas. Then we moved on to Europe. We consolidated all of Europe, brought it back to Las Vegas. So we were processing all the accounts payable, receivables, travel and expense card processing, on and on and on. I was with them till 2006. Left Cardinal Health, got back into banking. I was with various different banks as chief banking officer for a couple of local community banks here in town. Left them, and here I am with Litigation Services.
So tell us what does Litigation Services do?
So Litigation Services, in layman's term, is we provide anything that somebody like yourself, an attorney, would need before you set foot in the courtroom.
Like a stiff whiskey, maybe?
We would serve, we are here to please. So yes, we do provide that too. As a matter of fact, we've got a small bar set up in our office. From court reporting, depositions, to forensics, to trial presentations, anything to prepare a trial attorney or any attorney for that matter, and making them more prepared and making their lives easier is our job.
Yeah.
So anything that they need to support in order for them to win their case is where our company steps in. So,
before we get into Litigation Services, I'm always fascinated when I talk to people who've lived here a long time. You moved here in 1991. You really, I mean, that makes you almost a de facto native.
yeah.
Tell me your observation. Did you ever think that you would live in a city like Las Vegas would one day have two professional teams? There's talk about another, this town was just exploding before COVID hit.
Right.
What do you make of what Las Vegas is today compared to when you moved here?
A great question. I could have never fathomed in my wildest dreams, first of all, to answer your question, working here in Las Vegas. I used to come here a lot as a young guy from Albuquerque. A bunch of us would, catch a flight. It's an hour flight,
Sure.
For the weekend. But never, ever in my wildest dreams did I think that I'd one day be living here.
In Vegas.
So here I am. But to your second question is, when I moved here, Albuquerque, Las Vegas was literally a small town. I mean, it would take you 10, 12 minutes max from one end to the other, and it didn't matter where you lived.
Yeah.
I remember Lake Las Vegas, or Lakes, not Lake Las Vegas, was truly the end, and after that, there was nothing out there.
Yeah.
So, and here we are.
Yeah.
So, I've seen this town truly, truly expand in a very short period of time. And with that, of course,
And people have this attitude that Vegas is this party city, which, of course, you can find it on the Strip.
Sure.
But I always find it's a rap on Vegas that people say, oh, it's not a good place to raise your kids. You have a lovely wife and you have two beautiful sons.
Thank you.
And, well-adjusted family, and you would agree, right? This is a great town to raise your kids.
It absolutely is. I think it's truly a myth, and also a best-kept secret.
Right.
For those of us who live here, is from our vantage point, you've got the Strip, literally 15 minutes from your house.
Yeah.
So if you want to go out, on a weekend and have a nice dinner with your wife, or you've got a bunch of friends here in town, you want to just go to a club, you're literally 15 minutes away.
Yeah.
But yet, once you get into the suburban Vegas, it's any town USA.
Yeah.
I mean, it really, I'm sure you can probably vouch for that. We really don't see much what the tourist normally sees out on the Strip. So I think it's a great, great city to live in. I mean, you've got truly the best of both worlds.
It's the best of both worlds. So now, a lot of my viewers who are watching this, they obviously may not know a lot about litigation services. Those of us who are in the legal profession, in the legal field, your company is very well known for its court reporting and all the other sort of support services you provide. But I think there's a backstory here that a lot of people are not familiar with, and that is when you came into this company and you became the CEO, the company was in financial distress, and today it's an amazing turnaround story. This podcast could as much be a business segment, maybe on MSNBC or Fox Business Channel, because what you did actually with this company is really incredible. Litigation Services, correct me if I'm wrong, is one of the top 3 companies in the entire United States for court reporting and litigation support services.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yes.
And that is an amazing story. And so people think so much of Vegas as being a casino town, but here we have a leader in this industry based right here in Las Vegas. That is amazing.
Thank you. And needless to say, I mean, it's that's one disadvantage of being your friend, because now you're embarrassing me, because most people wouldn't have known what you just said, but I really, really appreciate it. Yes, I joined the firm in 2015, latter part of 2015, as Chief Administrative Officer, and took over as CEO of February 1 of 2016. And to your point, you're absolutely right. The company was insolvent for various different reasons. I hate to go into those details, but one person, Paul, as you know better than anyone, cannot turn anything around, let alone a company. So I was very fortunate to have extremely, extremely capable people, that were already working there.
Sure.
And it's just making sure that you give them the right authority, you get out of the way, and let them do what they do best.
Yeah.
And that's what we did.
So how many employees do you have here in Las Vegas?
So we've got 79 full-time employees.
Okay, but I know you've been expanding like crazy. Now you're in cities like what? You're New York,
We are in New York, we're in Manhattan, we are in Philadelphia, New Jersey, South Carolina, North Carolina. We've got,
continuing to expand.
Several dozen offices in California. Obviously, we are here. We just bought a company in Colorado, so we've got 2 offices there. We've got a total of about close to 40 offices.
Wow.
Yeah. And
how do you manage all that?
It's not easy, when there's so many people involved, and geographically is, time zones and everything else. But, you got to do what you got to do.
So how has COVID impacted litigation services?
We were no different. April, May of this year, we truly fell off the turnip truck. I mean, there was just nothing coming in.
Yeah.
And the toughest decision, I'm sure just like you went through, or any employer does, is making sure that you're trying to keep as many of your associates on payroll as you could.
Right.
And we were fortunate enough that we were able to save a lot of those jobs.
Yeah.
Purely because come June, as we started seeing more depositions, more business coming in, as the revenue started to flow in, we were able to save those jobs. So we are not at the pre-COVID level yet, but we are about 80% there.
Okay.
So I would classify our industry as pretty resilient compared to a lot of other, banking sector, or you take any other business in any other space, they're still hurting. But we certainly aren't hurting.
Yeah, and it's a cyclical thing because you're relying upon lawyers. Lawyers are relying upon the court system functioning. The court system, of course, had to shut down. You can't have people in the public coming in for a period of time when COVID hit. We've never seen anything like this before, at least not in modern history. The last time we had a pandemic on this scale was 1918. So everybody was unprepared for it. And the court system, I remember when, I think it was mid-March, things started to shut down a little bit. And we had this conversation, and you were saying to me that the depositions, things like that dried up. But now, as things are developing, and what's always interesting is out of crisis comes new opportunities, new developments, changes. What do you see into the future as far as do you think there's going to be more remote depositions? There's going to be more emphasis on video technology?
Great question. From Litigation Services vantage point, we were trying to push remote deposition last year.
Yeah.
And, most attorneys would say, no, I'd rather come to your office. I'd rather have, the deponent in front of me.
Yeah.
I'd rather see them face to face.
I felt the same way.
You felt the same way.
Yeah.
I remember you and I having this conversation. Yeah. But because of COVID, as you rightly pointed out, things have changed.
Yeah.
And I think the mindset has changed.
Right.
So to your question, I absolutely foresee a lot more remote depositions moving forward.
Yeah.
And I think as people like yourself have realized, it's a lot more comfortable for you to be in your office.
That's right.
Looking at your screen.
It's the new normal.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It saves time, it saves money, all parties concerned.
Well, one of my colleagues, Tony Abatangelo, he does a lot of criminal cases, and now
was he an ex-judge?
Yeah, he was the
Yes,
ex-judge.
I remember
And
that.
so he does a lot of what's called blue jeans, video telephone conferencing, appearing at hearings through that mechanism. And it saves a tremendous amount of time getting in the car, driving down to the courthouse. I really wonder what the future is going to look like 20 years from now when we realize maybe we don't need all this infrastructure in terms of big buildings, et cetera.
I mean, as you know, voice to text has been there for a while now.
Yeah.
And they're, from an accuracy perspective, I've seen several demos that are over 99% accurate.
Yeah.
However, what they have not been able to perfect yet is when you are deposing someone, and I'm the court reporter, and I am transcribing what you're talking about.
Yeah.
If a third party speaks over you,
Right.
it just jumbles it all up.
Yeah. How do you get over that? Yeah.
Exactly. And I think those are the issues. Once they take care of it, I fully see this company of ours or within our space automating in the next 5-10 years.
That's a great segue to another topic, which I was following events in the courthouse. Judge Betsy Gonzalez presided over the marijuana trials. And so they took the trial out of the courthouse, went to the convention center in order to make it a more COVID-friendly environment so that people, lawyers, witnesses, everyone could socially distance. Do you see that as a trend in the future, that there's going to be greater awareness, emphasis, focus on creating safety spaces so that people who come into these type of forums feel protected?
Absolutely. Another great, it was, we were fortunate enough to provide a court reporter for this particular case.
Oh, okay.
And unfortunately, because the case was so large and there were so many deponents involved, that she had to buy mics.
Oh, wow.
And had to spend her own money. I think she spent like over $7,000 just buying those mics, purely because they were so spread out and she couldn't hear them.
Oh, I see.
So, but to answer your question, I absolutely see that, but not as much as we've seen in the past. And along those same lines, I'm actually very seriously considering having a mock courtroom built out.
Wow.
Where, people like yourself can not only bring your clients in,
That's a great
so they
idea.
get comfortable with it,
Yeah.
but also, if they need to be off-site court hearings, we could at least
I
those
think there's a
spaces
huge
out.
market for that. Yeah, I think a lot of judges would like that too, frankly, because really, I think most judges' perspective is that their number one goal is to keep the jury safe, to make people feel comfortable in their courtroom. And I don't know when they're going to have a vaccine for this COVID-19. We don't know. Even then, there's cultural issues as far as when are people going to be comfortable interacting in close spaces with strangers.
Very true.
You have people on a jury who are randomly selected who don't know anything about the litigants. So I think that's a brilliant idea that you're going to have this COVID-friendly courtroom.
So do I have your endorsement, Paul?
You have my endorsement.
Okay,
That's a really interesting thing. So now talking about court reporting, because you told me some facts before, I was shocked when I heard this. Two things. Number one, I was surprised at how much court reporters can make. You were telling me that this is an industry where a decent or good court reporter can earn in excess of $100,000.
Absolutely.
And that yet there's a huge shortage of court reporters.
Isn't that amazing?
That is amazing.
As someone in one of our court reporting conferences several years back, I was attending, and I'll never forget this individual who'd been in our space for about over 40 years, looks at me and he says, Ali, this is truly the American dream.
Yeah.
And I said, what do you mean? And he said, think about all you need is a high school education, 3 years of schooling,
Yeah.
and you're a court reporter. You're a certified court reporter.
Yeah.
And you are making anywhere from $100,000 to $500,000 a year.
$500,000
Yes,
a
sir.
year.
So you can, it all depends how much you're willing to work and if you're real time or not, which a lot of our court reporters are. So
Yeah.
you get extra for that. And obviously, there's a little bit of luck involved too.
And you get to
depending on
work your own hours,
you
right?
work, absolutely.
You get to listen in on a lot of interesting testimony.
Lord knows, yeah. So I think, in my opinion, it's truly the best kept secret.
Yeah.
Maybe people like myself have not done a good enough job in getting the word out
Yeah.
to high school kids and educating them that, here's...
So a young person who's watching this show hears you talk about this and they're saying, wow, that's really interesting. How can that person get into court reporting?
I would strongly
Are there
recommend
schools that
reach
they
out
can
to
go-
us.
Okay.
If somebody has a potential, Litigation Services would actually sponsor them.
Wow.
And we will put them through school as long as they sign a 3-year contract with us. After they get certified, we will hire them, we will give them the jobs, and we will put them through school.
So someone wants, what's the main number at litigation?
702-314-7200. Thank you, Paul.
Say it one more time so they hear.
702-314-7200.
And if they call in, who should they ask for?
Ask for Seth Herteen.
Okay.
He's our Chief Operating Officer, and Seth can set them up.
Wow, that's really fascinating. So court reporting is a state-regulated profession, correct? There's a court reporting board.
Yep.
Okay. And so to become a court reporter, you have to eventually become certified and approved by this board.
Correct.
And then once you have that approval, you can. Are these folks employees or are they independent contractors?
So these are independent contractors.
Okay.
So they can not only work for Litigation Services, but if let's say they don't have a job one day, they can take another court reporting agency and perform a court reporting job for them. So, but knock on wood, most of our court reporters are extremely busy. I mean, quite honestly, to your point earlier, there's a shortage.
Yeah.
So we just can't,
keep them fast enough.
Fast enough.
Okay.
Exactly.
So now, do they have to go to a school or do they take a test? How does
So
that
they
work?
do go to school. You can take online classes. And then what we do is after they pass the online test, they have to sort of mirror a court reporter, certified court reporter. So we will assign them to one of our court reporters. So they actually sit with that court reporter and transcribe the actual deposition, while the court reporter is supervising them.
Fascinating.
And that's part of it. And then they take the final exam.
Wow.
And which, I'll throw that out, is not easy.
Yeah.
And then once, to your point earlier, once they pass, they get the court reporter number, just like you attorneys,
Yeah.
for each state you have
Well,
your own
I gotta
license
tell you,
number.
I think it's got to be an extremely difficult profession.
It is very difficult.
Because I see when I take depositions or I defend them, what the court reporter has to deal with. You have multiple people talking.
Absolutely.
You have to have a good knowledge of grammar, of the English language.
Yep.
Yes, of course, and be able to take that down. And you're really an officer of the court, essentially.
Absolutely you are.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. And not only that, but Paul, think about a lot of depositions that take place. We've got to have translators.
Yes.
Because they don't speak English.
Right.
or even the ones that do speak English, they speak like me. We've got a heavy accent. So, you've got to be able to understand exactly what the other individual is doing, because as you're transcribing that deposition. So you're absolutely right.
That's great. So Ali, I know you've received some awards. You've done a lot in terms of your company's commitment to public service here, supporting the community. I think that speaks a lot about you and Litigation Services, that, we're so proud of you because you're a Las Vegas-based company and you've expanded to become one of the top 3 companies in the country in this industry. It's amazing. But you haven't forgotten your roots, and you do stuff here in the community. I know you were recently honored by the Women's Democratic Club here in Las Vegas for a lot of community service.
And so were you.
Well, I just, I think I got lucky. They just threw my name in there.
I think, I got lucky because of you.
But tell us why do you feel this need to give back to the community?
We truly believe, Paul and I have been doing this pretty much all my life. If you are successful, it's time for you to give back to the community. And it doesn't matter which way you do it, whether you volunteer your time, which I know you do a lot of, or whether you monetarily give money to a charity and organization of your choice, whether you adopt families in other countries, or whether you do it here, whether you feed people. So I think it all depends on each individual and your mindset and what you want to do and what tugs your heart. So I firmly believe that if we are successful and we are doing well, it's time for us to pay back.
We're in this life together. That sounds corny
Very
to
true.
some people,
No,
but
absolutely.
it's true, right? I mean,
Totally
you can't
agree.
take anything with you.
Very true.
And
Very true.
our time on this planet is limited.
Yep.
It's limited. And if
Absolutely.
nothing else, I think COVID-19 has really brought that home
Very
in a very
true.
powerful way.
Very true.
Ali, thank you so much for having this conversation.
Thank you for having
so
me,
much
Paul.
for coming on and
Thank you.
educating our viewers about court reporting and what a fascinating field that is. And thank you so much for everything you're doing with Litigation Services.
Thank you, Paul.
Really proud of this company and all that you've done.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Folks, been a great episode with Ali Rizvi, CEO of Litigation Services, a really industry leader and a homegrown company right here from Las Vegas that is dominating its field. We're very proud to have such a company headquartered right here in Las Vegas. It's been very informative. I've really enjoyed talking to Ali. Until next time, take care.